It's September 1978. You are watching a BC's hit show, The Dating Game. The lights are bright, the music is groovy, and Bachelor number 1 is being introduced as a successful photographer and skydiver. He's charming, he's witty, and in about 20 minutes, he's going to win the girl. But there is something the studio audience doesn't know. Bachelor number 1 isn't just a contestant. He's a registered sex offender, a fugitive on the run from the FBI, and a serial killer who has already murdered at least 4 women. While the audience is clapping, he is thinking about his next victim. This is the story of how a monster hid in plain sight on national television, and the one woman who saw through his mask just in time. Cheryl Bradshaw had a choice to make. Behind the partition sat 3 eligible bachelors. She asked the questions, they gave the answers, and in the end, she picked Bachelor number 1. The crowd cheered as they met face to face. It seemed like the perfect TV moment, but the second the cameras stopped rolling, Cheryl turned to the producers and whispered, "I can't go out with him. He's creepy." That single gut feeling, that sudden wave of nausea, is the only reason Cheryl Bradshaw is alive today. Because the man she just won a date with was Rodney Alcala. And his idea of a date wasn't dinner and a movie. It was torture and death. He studied film under Roman Polanski. He was on the FBI's 10 most wanted list. He had an IQ of 170, and he brutally murdered at least 8 women, though the real number could be over 100. But you don't know him from the news. You know him from The Dating Game. Rodney Alcala is the only serial killer in history to successfully appear on a primetime game show in the middle of a killing spree. How did he get past the background checks? Why did the jury sentence him to death 3 separate times? And who are the hundreds of unidentified women found in his private photo collection? Let's dig in. The 1970s was a decade of liberation. It was the era of free love, disco, and open roads. But beneath the glitter, it was also the golden age of the American serial killer. Names like Bundy, Gacy, and Berkowitz were dominating the headlines. But while those men tried to blend in or hide in the shadows, one predator decided to do the unthinkable. He didn't want to hide. He wanted to be a star. Hello and welcome to Hidden Killers. Today, we are investigating the most arrogant criminal in history, Rodney Alcala, the man now known as the Dating Game Killer. How does a man with a genius IQ and a violent rap sheet charm his way onto national television? And more importantly, what happened to the hundreds of women found in his private photography collection? In this deep dive, we are going to look past the game show clip. We're going to analyze the loopholes of the analog era, the survivor's intuition that saved a life, and the disturbing trophy room that suggests his victim count is far higher than the official record. This isn't just a story about a bad date. It's a story about a wolf in a polyester suit. Let's play the game. In the late summer of 1978, a casting call went out in Los Angeles. The producers of a BC's hit show, The Dating Game, were looking for eligible bachelors. They wanted men who were charismatic, handsome, and successful. They wanted men who could make the female contestant swoon and the studio audience laugh. Into this casting call walked a man named Rodney Alcala. He was 35 years old, though he looked younger. He had a mop of curly dark hair, a confident smile, and an aura of intelligence that set him apart from the typical aspiring actors who auditioned. He told the producers he was a successful photographer. He dropped names. He mentioned that he had studied film at NYU under the legendary director Roman Polanski. He claimed to be a skydiver and a motorcyclist. He was the total package, an adventurous, artistic bad boy. The contest coordinator, a woman named Ellen Metzger, actually had reservations. She later recalled thinking there was something off about him, a strange intensity in his eyes. But her husband, the executive producer Mike Metzger, overruled her. He saw Alcala's bad boy charm as television gold. They needed someone edgy, They needed someone who would shake up the format. What the producers didn't know, because in 1978, there were no national digital databases or instant background checks, was that their perfect bachelor was already a registered sex offender. They didn't know that the FBI had once placed him on their 10 most wanted list. They didn't know that while he was sitting in the green room waiting for his interview, he was likely replaying the memories of the women he had already strangled. The vetting process consisted of a few phone calls. Alcala had changed his name slightly, moved states, and covered his tracks. He walked onto that set, not just as a contestant, but as a wolf who had successfully tricked the shepherds into letting him into the fold. The episode aired on September 13th, 1978. The host, Jim Lange, introduced the contestants with his trademark enthusiasm. Bachelor number 1 was Rodney Alcala. Bachelor number 2 was a reckless charmer, and bachelor number 3 was a quiet intellectual. But Alcala dominated the stage from the moment he sat down. When introduced, Lange said, "Bachelor number 1 is a successful photographer who got his start when his father found him in the darkroom at age 13, fully developed. Between takes, you might find him skydiving or motorcycling." The audience laughed. Alcala smiled, leaning back in his chair with a terrifying level of confidence. He wasn't nervous. Most people on television for the first time are shaking. Alcala was feeding off the energy. The bachelorette was Cheryl Bradshaw, a drama teacher. She began asking her questions. The dynamic was meant to be flirty, but Alcala's answers were bizarre, filled with double entendres that take on a horrific meaning in hindsight. Cheryl asked him, "I'm serving you for dinner. What are you called and what do you look like?" Alcala replied, "I'm called the banana, and I look good." Cheryl laughed and asked, "Can you be a little more descriptive?" Alcala paused, looked directly at the camera, and said, "Peel me." The audience roared with laughter. They thought he was being suggestive. But looking back, psychologists point out the aggressive nature of his answers. He wasn't trying to connect with Cheryl. He was trying to dominate the interaction. He was playing a role. To him, the other bachelors weren't competition. They were prey. He was the smartest person in the room, mocking the entire premise of the show while participating in it. He knew exactly what to say to win, manipulating the format just like he manipulated his victims. At the end of the segment, Cheryl made her choice. She picked bachelor number 1. The curtain rose, and Alcala bounded down the steps to meet his date. He grabbed her, kissed her hand, and flashed a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. On screen, it looked like a match made in heaven. They were promised a paid chaperone date tennis lessons and a trip to Magic Mountain. But as soon as the cameras stopped rolling, the fantasy shattered. Backstage, the adrenaline wore off, and Cheryl Bradshaw found herself standing next to a man who made her skin crawl. She later described an overwhelming physical sensation of nausea. She said he became arrogant and imposing the moment the audience was gone. Cheryl Bradshaw did something that likely saved her life. She listened to her gut. The very next day, she called the show's contestant coordinator, Ellen Metzger. She said, "I can't go out with this guy. There are weird vibes coming off him. He's creepy." The producers were annoyed. They had prizes to give away, but they agreed to let her forfeit the date. Alcala was reportedly furious when he found out he had been rejected. This rejection is crucial to understanding his timeline. Narcissists like Alcala do not handle rejection well. It triggers a narcissistic injury. When Cheryl said no, she bruised his ego. And when a predator's ego is bruised, they often look for a way to re-establish control. Police believe that this rejection on national television may have accelerated his killing spree, pushing him to find a new victim to win since he had lost the prize he felt he deserved. To understand the monster that Cheryl Bradshaw narrowly escaped, we have to rewind a decade. In 1968, Rodney Alcala was already a predator. On a sunny afternoon in Hollywood, He pulled his car up to an 8-year-old girl named Tali Shapiro as she was walking to school. He told her he was a photographer and asked if she wanted a ride. A passing motorist noticed the girl getting into the car and felt that something was wrong. That motorist followed Alcala to his apartment and called the police. When officers arrived, they didn't wait to knock. They kicked the door down. Inside, they found a scene of absolute horror. Tali Shapiro had been brutally beaten with a steel bar and strangled. She was barely clinging to life. Alcala, hearing the police at the door, had jumped out the back window and vanished into the Los Angeles traffic. Tali Shapiro survived, miraculously, but Alcala was now on the run. This is where the justice system first failed. Alcala fled to New York, changed his name to John Berger, and lived underground. He was placed on the FBI's most wanted list, sandwiched between bank robbers and terrorists. Eventually, he was caught in New Hampshire, but due to a series of legal technicalities and a reluctance to put the young victim on the stand, prosecutors offered him a plea deal. He served less than 3 years in prison. By 1978, the man who had bludgeoned the child was back on the streets, his record sealed, free to audition for a game show. Rodney Alcala didn't use a van or a mask to abduct his victims. He used a Nikon camera. Photography was his passport into people's lives. In the 1970s, everyone wanted to be famous. Everyone wanted to be a model. Alcala knew this. He would hang out in places like Washington Square Park in New York or the beaches of Southern California, looking for young women teenagers. He would approach them with a professional demeanor. "You have a great look," he would say. "I'm a photographer for a magazine. Can I take some shots for your portfolio?" It was a brilliant, evil strategy. It flattered the victim's ego. It established trust. It explained why he was watching them. Victims would willingly go with him to isolated spots, the desert, the hills, or his soundproofed apartment, believing they were on a photo shoot. Once they were isolated, the director would turn into the torturer. Psychologically, the camera was an extension of his control. He wasn't just capturing their image. He was capturing their essence. Investigators later found that he would often continue taking photos during the assault. He wanted to document the transition from hope to fear. He wanted to freeze the moment where they realized he wasn't a photographer, but a killer. For Alcala, the murder wasn't enough. He needed a souvenir of the fear he created. Between his release from prison in 1974 and his appearance on The Dating Game in 1978, Alcala lived a transient life, moving between the East and West Coasts. During this time, he perfected his killing method. In New York, he murdered Cornelia Crilly, a flight attendant. He gained access to her apartment, likely using his charm or a ruse. She was found strangled. Later, he targeted Ellen Hover, a wealthy socialite and the daughter of a famous nightclub owner. She vanished in 1977. Her remains were found a year later on the Rockefeller estate. What is infuriating about this period is that Alcala was technically a parolee. He was supposed to be monitored, but he played the system. He was intelligent. He had an IQ of 170. He knew exactly how to present himself to parole officers as a reformed man, an artist trying to get his life back together. He utilized the lack of communication between state agencies. New York police didn't talk to California police. A murder in Manhattan wasn't linked to an assault in Los Angeles. Alcala existed in the gaps of the system. He was a shark swimming in a pool where the lifeguards were looking the other way. By the time he returned to California in 1978, he was an experienced, confident serial killer who felt completely untouchable. Upon returning to California and emboldened by his Dating Game appearance, Alcala unleashed a wave of violence that is difficult to comprehend. He targeted women of all ages. He killed Jill Barkham, an 18-year-old runaway. He killed Georgia Wickstead, a 27-year-old nurse. He killed Charlotte Lamb, a 32-year-old legal secretary. His modus operandi revealed a deep-seated sexual sadism. Alcala didn't just want to kill. He wanted to play God. Forensic evidence suggests he would strangle his victims until they passed out, wait for them to regain consciousness, and then strangle them again. He would repeat this cycle multiple times. He wanted to be the last thing they saw. He wanted to watch the light leave their eyes and then bring it back, only to extinguish it again. This wasn't just about elimination. It was about prolonged suffering. While the police were finding bodies dumped in remote locations, Alcala was living a normal life. He was working as a typesetter for the Los Angeles Times. He was dating. He was, to his neighbors, just the guy with the curly hair and the nice camera. The terrifying reality was that the dating game bachelor was spending his weekends torturing women, then going to work on Monday morning as if nothing had happened. The game finally came to an end in the summer of 1979. The victim was Robin Samso, a 12-year-old girl who loved ballet. On June 20th, she rode her yellow bicycle to her dance class in Huntington Beach. A man approached her, asking if he could take pictures of her on her bike. She agreed. She was never seen alive again. Her disappearance sparked a massive manhunt. Her body was eventually found in the foothills of the Sierra Madre Mountains, ravaged by wildlife. But unlike his previous crimes, Alcala had been sloppy. A witness had seen him talking to Robin. A police sketch was released to the public. It showed a man with distinct, curly hair. In a twist of fate, Alcala's own parole officer saw the sketch and felt a chill of recognition. He called the police and said, "I think that's one of my guys." Police rushed to verify the tip. They found that Alcala had been in the area. But the smoking gun, the piece of evidence that would tie the charming bachelor to the brutal murder, was a pair of earrings. Robin had been wearing gold ball earrings when she vanished. When police raided Alcala's mother's house, they found a small pouch. Inside were the earrings. He had kept them as a trophy. When the police arrested Alcala, they found the earrings, but they also found a key to a storage locker in Seattle, Washington. Detectives flew north, expecting to find perhaps some stolen goods or furniture. What they found was a gallery of horrors. Inside the locker were hundreds, literally hundreds of photographs. They were high-quality, professional slides. They featured women, teenage girls, and young boys. Some were posed in bikinis. Others were graphic. But the most haunting photos were the candid ones. Women smiling at the camera, looking happy, safe, and beautiful. These were his trophies. Alcala had kept a visual diary of every potential victim he had ever met. The police realized with sinking hearts that they weren't just looking at pictures. They were looking at a graveyard. In 2010, the Huntington Beach Police Department made the unprecedented decision to release these photos to the public online. They hoped that women would come forward and say, "That's me, I'm alive." And many did, but many others did not. There are still dozens of women in those photos who have never been identified. To this day, we do not know if they walked away from that photo shoot, or if they are buried in the desert, known only to the man who took their picture. If you need proof of Rodney Alcala's narcissism, look no further than his trials. He was tried 3 separate times. In a display of supreme arrogance, he acted as his own lawyer. Imagine the scene. The mother of Robin Samso, the 12-year-old victim, sitting on the witness stand, weeping. And standing 5 feet away from her, asking her questions, is the man who killed her daughter. He asked her about the earrings. He asked her about the time of day. He grilled her on details, seemingly enjoying the pain he was causing. In a bizarre defense strategy, Alcala actually played clips of his appearance on the dating game to the jury. He wanted to show them what a charming, normal guy he was. He thought his TV appearance would exonerate him. Instead, it terrified them. The jury saw the disconnect, the mask slipping. He was sentenced to death in California. He was later extradited to New York to face charges for the murders of Cornelia Crilly and Ellen Hover. where he received an additional 25 years to life. But Rodney Alcala never faced execution. He died of natural causes in prison in July 2021. At the age of 77, he took his secrets to the grave, leaving us with the terrifying footage of a killer winning a date and the haunting faces of the women in his photographs who never came home. Rodney Alcala is dead. The game is over. But the lesson he left behind is more relevant than ever. We live in a world where we are constantly told to be polite, to be nice, to give people a chance. But Cheryl Bradshaw didn't be polite. She didn't worry about hurting his feelings. She felt a weird vibe, and she listened to it. That split-second decision to reject the perfect bachelor is the only reason she is alive to tell the story, instead of becoming just another photo in a storage locker. If there is one thing to take away from this case, it is this: your intuition is a survival mechanism. If someone feels wrong, even if they are handsome, charming, or famous, listen to that feeling. It might just save your life. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever had a bad vibe about someone that turned out to be right? Tell me your story in the comments below. If you found this deep dive compelling, please hit the like button and subscribe. I've linked a playlist here to more stories about how predators hide in plain sight. Until next time, don't go on the date and stay safe.